For as long as I can remember, our family would debate and analyze whether an old family legend was true.
Nobody knows. It was very accepted.
You know, Dad, the people who bought the farm right after the Peins only stayed a few years. That's kind of odd because Germans tend to own homes for a long time and then pass them down to the next generation. They could have found the gold and fled.
There were 3 owners before he bought it in 1993.
Jeder hat etwas verändert immer in seiner Zeit.
And everybody changed something.
Growing up, my dad told me an intriguing story about my great-grandfather, Richard Pein, who was at one time the mayor of Berlitt. A well-respected member of the community, Pein allegedly buried gold coins worth millions of dollars beneath his pig barn shortly before the Russians invaded his small community at the end of World War II. Pein and his wife Helena died a few years later, and according to their eldest son Richard, he witnessed this event and would later tell my dad the family secret in 1984.
Why would he take me in the cornfield and tell me? He would never tell the kids. That's why his own kids didn't believe it.
So I just got done interviewing some of my cousins in Nassau, and I was shocked because not one of them believed the story about the gold coins to be true.
It was all secrets. That whole society was secrets.
The war not only divided a country, but it split our family in half.
Only when I have seen this letter he wrote to my mother-in-law, I only have seen it after he died, I said, it's so pity that I can't talk to him. Now that I'm an adult, I would love to talk to you and get feedback on the time and to better understand why are you as you are.
Another family secret that no one talked about involved the Pein's second oldest son, Werner Pein.
He was captured in France at the end of World War II.
Werner was a police officer before the war and was later drafted into Hitler's SS. While he survived the Battle of Stalingrad, he was later captured in France and spent several years in prison accused of Nazi war crimes.
One of the last planes who went from Stalingrad back to Germany, he was in one of these planes, and what he told me is that he had an injury in his leg, and in the plane they wanted to cut him the leg. And he said, no. If you do this, no, I'll better die.
The Peins, who had 6 children, fled their home. One of them was my grandmother, Lisa Lotta, who would later immigrate to the United States in 1957 with 6 other family members. Now, 73 years later, I'm finishing a journey my ancestors couldn't make to go back to the house and see if our buried treasure is still there. Sadly, my dad could not make the trip because of health issues.
I thought I was excited because, you know, Mom and Dad were there, and Grandpa Rose was there, Grandpa Pein was there. The whole family was there.
Hi, Hans. Tammy and I are here.
Yeah.
So how you doing?
Okay. And
Guess where I'm going in the next couple of days?
hopefully to see Ozil and all the people in Germany.
I am so excited. I am heading to Berlitt, Germany to meet with the homeowners of our old home that belonged to my great-grandparents. And I'm going to find out if this legend, the story that I was told when I was little, is true.
Something is buried in the pig barn in the back, and it's gold. It's the gold pieces that his grandfather buried. In other words, had in the First World War.
Something is definitely buried there, but what remains to be seen. And I am just hoping I can bring back some answers for my dad. Just being able to step back in time and see where my great-grandparents once lived and be inside their home is just incredible. We're just about a mile away from Berlitt. And there it is. Oh, yep, there's the church. Definitely a little nervous because I don't know what to expect. I believe that's the house right there. The homeowners were gracious enough to let me film our old home. However, they asked me not to use their names or faces in my documentary. What once was a 6-bedroom house has now been transformed over the years with larger rooms and accommodations. Where my great-grandparents once sat for their last family Christmas dinner before their youngest son Gunter was killed in the war, now has a warm fireplace and another dining room.
It was built around 1920 because there is an inscription in one of the stalls that says 1920. And the house must have been built around the same time. So he guesses somewhere between 1910 and 1920. And so when this whole property was constructed.
Treppe war früher geschlossen mit einem Holzkasten.
So the stairway used to be closed with a wooden box, basically.
Ist jetzt offen.
Now it's open. From the corner that you see over there up until the wall back there, nobody lived here. This used to be a place for storing grains or maybe used as a room for children, but nobody lived here.
While I was hoping to get more information about our alleged buried treasure, another family secret was revealed.
So he's asking if you know that they were quite involved with the National Socialist Party. This family, very very terrible Nazis.
However, my German relatives dispute these claims, saying Richard was a poor farmer who was quick to help out his neighbor, including friends who owned this property.
There's a little palace or castle called Königsmark, and the owner of it had to also flee after the war, before the Russians would come. Okay. And that one of the Peins was the caretaker of that property.
According to a 91-year-old neighbor who says he knew my great-grandfather Richard Pein, says there was a lot of evidence my family had money.
Irrespective of whether it has to do with National Socialism or not, he seems to have been tightly involved with a very rich landowner around here, the owner of this palace. So that at least, regardless of whether he was mayor or worked at a bank, there was some, kind of high-level association that he had. Those cars were Auto Union, which is called Audi today, and nobody could afford it.
So they think even if there was something there, that the Russians would have found it. And I'm not so sure, because there's one other bit of information that my dad and I only know.
He thinks that if you bury something, if you hide something really well, then it would be hidden till today.
And actually, I have the one bit of information that is not on the internet anywhere.
Apparently, after they buried the treasure, they put cement over it. So I just don't think anyone could have came in there and started digging. I mean, I've been asked questions over the years saying, why don't you just go and dig it up? Why don't you just go and look? Because we can't. There is concrete over it. It's not something you can just easily do. You have to bring in heavy machinery and equipment.
Something that comes close to this story, something that really did happen, is that here in the Soviet occupation zone, that anybody who was caught with having weapons would have been executed. So burying weapons was definitely something that was very common, because people who were caught having weapons would have assumed to have been German soldiers and been executed for that reason. So this comes close to this idea of burying something at all. It's not unheard of.
My German relatives believe if this story is true, it would make my great-grandfather a criminal, and that crime would be on their shoulders. I, on the other hand, feel we are not responsible for what our ancestors did, but we should learn from their mistakes. I know my father was the only person that my great-uncle told this story to, but it happened in 1984, before the wall came down, and that's when families were still very secretive. They didn't share family secrets, they didn't open up that much. So I remember my dad telling me after that visit, we were all in Germany at the time,
Chickens, geese, and Schweine, genau, and pigs. Concrete square that you see over there used to be where that other barn was that doesn't exist anymore.
As soon as I walked into the backyard, I knew the story of our buried treasure was true. Everything my great-uncle described to my dad was still there. Although the new homeowners believe the story could be true, they have no interest in digging up the past, and after this journey, I feel some secrets are better left buried.
Okay, wie gesagt, ich habe kein Interesse daran. Ich wühle auch hier nicht irgendwas rum. Was soll das?
He said they're not interested. They don't want to dig around for it themselves or something.
It's not ours anyway. Whoever bought it, according to Sure at all. And if they give it to you, you gotta give it to the government anyway.
Okay.
So-
Has he ever taken a metal detector? Just curious. And ever? Has he ever?
I bet he hasn't.
He didn't.
Du hast noch nie einen Metalldetektor oder so.
Nein, das geht ja los. Nein.
I'm still hopeful. I actually still believe something is buried there.
Well, it's not about the gold.